Good morning, guys. Coach Theo here on Common Sense. This is going to be a bit of an explorative video. That's why I'm recording here in an unusual location and at an unusual time. It's quite early. I woke up extra early today at 3. Basically, guys, I want to start talking more directly about topics around relationships and attachment styles. So, the whole anxious avoidant thing that is very related to relationships, but also a great way of understanding yourself, inner child healing, childhood trauma, those kinds of things. And they are all things I touched on in my content. But guys, basically, you gotta realize that the process I practice for over 6 years and teach to others, holistic bodybuilding, as you know, bodybuilding is a cornerstone. It's a great place to start, but it is a holistic work on yourself, meaning on every level. And there are so many things I consider equally as important that I just haven't talked as much about in videos because it's more difficult with some things, but it's also at a certain point. It's like, some things I've talked about many times. There's an ongoing dialogue with you guys and I have things to refer back to. And I can find it a bit overwhelming or difficult sometimes when I want to get into something where I have not talked about this fleshed out before. So where do I even start? And I can get this perfectionism that, if I go with it, I have to mention all these things. I have to get exactly everything right and explain everything. But I'm just not going to be able to. So you got to start somewhere. So basically, that's why I'm saying a bit of an explorative video where I'll be talking about the abandonment wound and everything I can think about that's related to that. And then I'll just be looking forward to you guys' input and comments for further videos, right? And I also want to say before I start the actual topic that, guys, because I'm going to be using that, it's an annoying thing for me because I am so holistic. I take a little bit of I'm not a bodybuilder. I'm not a spiritual guy. I am Theo, holistic bodybuilder, uncommon sense. And I just implement everything I see as true, valuable, real, necessary, And so during these years, I've learned so many things about everything, everything I consider important, like not just training, fitness, diet, the physical part, or stress, depression, relationships, understanding all these aspects of yourself. But the point is, there's a lot of crap, just like there's a bunch of crappy fitness information out there, but they'll be using some of the same words I use, for instance. They're just, same thing around spirituality. I hate it's very annoying to me that I definitely identify with a general belief in God, not a follower of a religion. And I think many of the words that are used, you talk about, even attachment and inner child healing and stuff are things that are related to more like spiritual lingo, but there's so many people that will be spewing and using these words and spewing so much crap, and people, attachment styles, narcissism and this. So what I mean is just don't be put off by words and actually listen to what I say instead, right? So let's talk about the abandonment wound, something I am very familiar with, okay? It's one of the core wounds and fears human beings have because basically, these core wounds and fears, they are in part us human beings. We are a perfect product of our environment and genes, right? But even how our ancestors have been affected by their environment, that's going to go into our genes. So, some things that could be environmental are also inherited, actually in your DNA, like attachment styles. They are actually inherited, but also developed and changed, developed through childhood, or even if you have a great upbringing, you actually, start untangling yourself from some of these things. But a reason why abandonment is such a huge fear for human beings, and all of this, develops in childhood, is because to a child, abandonment means death. That's why when you feel abandoned in a romantic relationship, it's effectively the same emotional experience you're having, even though if you logically know that you don't die from your lover leaving you, your inner child is having the experience of dying, because a kid that just left to its own devices, is not going to be able to survive out in the wild by itself, okay? So the abandonment wound, again, I can tell that I have ancestral trauma of abandonment, because I feared abandonment as a kid, even before having signs directly from my parents I was being abandoned. I guess because a big thing for me was that I was brought up with an autistic brother. And I guess maybe unconsciously I felt abandoned because he took so much attention already then. But I just remember that I was a very reflective, philosophical kid. First of all, I had the matrix psychosis. I didn't really think of it as matrix, but basically I realized that everything here could technically be fake. All I know is that I exist. I am. I think, therefore I am. I basically thought that. I realized everyone else could be an actor or just a robot or whatever, But in the same way, I figure, what if my parents are fooling me? What if they are like thieves, was the word I used, like tjuv in Swedish. And one day I'll just wake up and they'll be gone, was like a fear I had. When I must have been like 7 years old or something. So maybe already at that point I felt abandoned when I didn't get the attention I needed because my brother, autistic brother, took so much attention. But the point is that apart from inheriting it, we develop abandonment issues when we get abandoned, either like directly, that a parent actually left us, because even if we don't think of it all that logically as kids, we can often feel like they left us. There was something wrong with me because of this, even if it wasn't, But the other thing is you can be abandoned emotionally, but not physically. So, of course, by just not getting enough attention, you can feel abandoned. But also, in the case of me, I know that my dad, in my teens, when I was feeling like terrible but I had a lot of problems, it was not easy for my parents and with my brother too. I know that my dad's response, when he couldn't handle me, he just shut down. And I remember actually because I'm staying at my parents' place to take care of their cats when they're away, actually in this exact room, I can remember when my dad was sitting here, I was feeling terrible and standing just like in the doorway here. I wanted to talk, but I could just feel the coldness, that I felt unwanted, right? And so none of this, when I'm just using my experience, I'm not holding anything. I have figured this out very much, and I've forgiven my parents a long time ago. But basically, I felt, what do you feel is like the person that's supposed to be there for you when you're hurting and you're a kid, they're not there. You feel abandoned. But so many mechanisms you develop from this is what I mean, also frustrating to me, because there's like so many things, concepts I like to explain. I just cannot go into every little thing. You just like why you develop them. We could talk about why you develop certain mechanisms from the abandonment wound, but let's now just talk about the mechanisms that you actually develop. The funny or not very funny thing at all with us human beings is that our fears often become self-fulfilling prophecies. The thing we fear the most, subconsciously we act in a way to make it happen, because on some level, even though we fear it and we don't like how it feels or something, that's like what we've been programmed to. It's like the experience we're programmed to have, and that's a tough thing for humans, that often when we realize that what we want consciously and what we don't want consciously, we often go against it unconsciously. And when you realize, you can blame yourself, but you have to realize that that's just part of your programming, just like you would, I don't know, get scared by a lion, the classic example, right? That's to serve you, right? So you can run away. This is all things you developed in your childhood because it was made, things you felt you had to do to get love or just survive, So the mechanism, even as an adult, it's just not working in your conscious interest, but it was there once upon a time to help you survive. So when you look at it that way, it can be easier to forgive yourself for the self-sabotage you do. But basically, the not so funny thing is that the person with abandonment issues manifests abandonment in their life, like both romantically and from other people in different ways. It's just like people-pleasing behavior is something that you develop from, because you try to please people so they won't abandon you, right? But people-pleasing, for instance, that can look very differently to it's not just all being nice, and it can be just going along with things from people that you don't really want to, just because that you feel like you have to, or else they'll leave you, or they'll think you're bad or something like that. So people pleasing tendencies is something that people with abandonment issues deal with. So I dealt with a lot of that as a kid I didn't see it, but other people could pick up on that. I felt I was really worried about not pleasing someone, that I hurt them somehow, you know. So, for instance, you know, a thing like that I still do, the snus, tobacco. Of course, you have to be 18 technically to have that, but I started before I was 18. You know, you either get someone else to buy it, or there's different places that you could buy it still, and that. But basically, it's you don't. You're both poor as a teenager, but also you cannot get that everywhere. So it's a bit of a treasure when you have tobacco, right? It's classic, of course, as a kid, whether that's tobacco or something else, that someone has money and has stuff, you know, and someone never has, and they're always, you know, mooching off of them. And I can remember like one particular guy, but with definitely more. Always like taking from me. I get very little back, and at some point I was just like, no, like I need this for me. And I remember how he could just go like, oh, okay, and just look like that, and I immediately feel bad, like, oh, now he's not gonna like me. I'm not gonna be as tight with the friend group, and then I immediately, okay, you know, give it to him. And I can see how that has happened a lot in my life. That because and it's confusing. I said that in a recent video. It's confusing for people, person with people pleasing tendencies, because often it's also the kind of person that genuinely likes pleasing people, as in like being there for people, wants to say yes, genuinely wants to help, likes making others feel good. So you know, that's a way sometimes to make excuses for the times when we actually abandon ourselves in this way. That's the thing with abandonment wound too. You abandon yourself in fear that others will abandon you. And by abandon yourself, I mean going against what is true, and like genuine, authentic, real to you. Because I didn't want to. I didn't feel like I should give that guy in that example any snooze, right? I don't like I have to, but something, my fear makes me do it anyway, right? Well, I guess the point is just that it can be, well, no, but I do, you know, you make excuses for it, but you have to realize that, no, it's good that you're a giving person, but you're going to have to learn to set boundaries and not be overly responsible for other people's emotions. The funny thing is that the people pleaser often thinks that it is that they're looking out for others, because they do that at times too, but the people pleasing thing is entirely selfish. You're just trying to please someone to get what you want. In this case, not be abandoned. You know, that's the funny thing with a thing like empathy. Empathy is just a function. It's just like love. It's not just an emotion. If you're gonna be actually empathetic, it's acting in alignment with what is like best for someone. But just the trait of being empathetic, it's just being able to attune, feeling other people's emotions. So many times the empathetic person is actually being selfish when they, for instance, won't tell someone a harsh truth, for instance, out of fear that they will hurt their feelings. But maybe this person, they need to get their feelings hurt. They need to hear this harsh truth, right? But so how the person with abandonment wound manifests abandonment in their life is, first of all, it's so interesting to be a human being, guys, because, well, basically all relationships that are drawn into your life are some kind of perfect reflection, mirror of you. All relationships in your life, they appear for a reason. Not all of the men, most of them are not even meant to be permanent, but there's something that can be shown to you in certain relationships, right? So a person with abandonment issues is often going to find themselves drawn to people, like romantically, that well, they'll also have a fear of abandonment often, but in the dynamic, that's not what's going to be on top for them. Often they're going to be drawn to people that really fear emotional intimacy and being committed to someone like that. So often the abandonment wounded person will find themselves running after someone that is unavailable, you know, that just doesn't give them what they want, that makes them feel abandoned, or that they're about to be abandoned, right? So first of all, the abandonment wounded person will often have that experience, that whoever they get, it's like, why will people not stay with me, or why do I feel like I have to fight so hard all the time, you know? But also, the person with abandonment wound will actually make someone, when things might be fine or could be fine, the subconsciously, the person with abandonment wound will act in a way that gives them the outcome that they consciously do not want at all. So I'll give you some examples that I can see. It's not like, now that's a tough thing with all of this too, guys, that there's always, because in relationships too, there's always two, that takes two to tango, but you always have to take responsibility for your side and your experience of things. So because it can seem so harsh sometimes, like when I don't know, things go wrong in relationships, like it's always like all your fault. It's like, no, it doesn't mean that the other person acted right, but you did not act right either, is the point. And you cannot fix other people. You can just fix, and shouldn't even think of it as fix, but work on yourself. But so something I can see is that when I've gotten into conflict with some people, and maybe what I really should do is just let these people get some space from me. Someone is fed up with me right now, and I cannot do anything for them to be less fed up, like actively. I kind of just have to give them their time to kind of process it, calm down, and maybe be like, okay, maybe I missed you a bit. But I can see that in my fear of being abandoned, even by friends at times, I fought so hard to make them see things my way, or blah, blah, that I just come across as even more overwhelming and pushy. And I end up actually, this relationship ends up ending. And look, to just give that, what I said, it's not all on me or the abandonment wounded person. Like maybe the other person should also be able to understand why they might have acted so that someone would be more pushy and come about, hey, I want to sort this out now. It's on them too. But you see, we have to focus on our part in this, right? But yeah, I can totally see that the one girlfriend I've had as an adult, like, I had other girlfriends technically, but the one like actual relationship living with here in Sweden and stuff. To be clear, I meant before Uncommon Sense. So before I was 26, I had some girls that I technically didn't just hook up with once, spent some time with, but never called my girlfriend. But there was one girl, we were officially boyfriend, girlfriend, living together, and I've had one girlfriend since Uncommon Sense that I just didn't mention in this video. But yeah, just to clear up any confusion to those that have seen more of my videos, heard me talk about these things. And now I'm gonna go on to talk about Louise, my ex from before Uncommon Sense. I can see now that when we were dating, she really feared emotional intimacy, and I could not get it. I could not get why she obviously likes me. We get along, we see each other. We start having sex and things, but why does she like not want to commit to a relationship? It was both that with the whole girlfriend boyfriend situation discussion, that she like was hesitant to even have that, but also I remember one time when I just texted her and was like, I really like you, because that's one thing about me, and that while I've worked a lot of on myself since I was like a completely different person, one thing I've always been quite able to be open about, like, express emotions. I think especially when I just like someone, I'm not afraid of expressing affection for them, And I just remember this response I got, like, I don't know what to say when you say that, and like an angry emoji, And I remember feelings like, what? If anything, I said something nice, But I can see now that I was drawn to a person where I like a subconscious comfort zone for me, where I feel like, am I being abandoned? Like, can I even get this person? We did get together eventually. I'll say this, I guess, because these are things I've noticed in later romantic situations that are not all gone, but they were much worse back then. But one thing, the anxious person is often jealous, because they got a deficit of attention. In my case, like, I've been highly jealous in romantic relationships, and I know it is because I felt all the time that the person that I love, the people that I love, they're supposed to give me loving attention. I got almost nothing from that. My parents and that my brother got them instead, So, as a kid, even understanding logically why he has more special needs and stuff, you feel like someone else is getting the attention and love that you're supposed to get. So you easily, when you see that, you fear that, that you hate that feeling, so you fear that happening, and you easily see and have that experience, So I remember that I was just freaking out that she would cheat on me, like realizing now that she was not the person I don't think she ever would have, but when I was away, for instance, I had to go away to have, like, I studied journalism back in the day and do, like, what do you call it, practice internship or whatever, like, not really internship because it's just a couple of weeks. I remember I was so afraid that she would. I would when she was out partying with her friends, which that's another discussion. That's not something I really would want a girl I'm with to do now. But back then, I would have been a hypocrite because I went and did things like that myself, you know. But I remember that I just because I couldn't communicate with her through the entire night, and like she was kind of passed out in the morning, and it takes some time before I hear her, I made up this entire story about how she's cheated on me, and I was so anxious. Like, then at some point she responds to me, and I'm just like, it's like I made this all up in my head. But I had to have that experience so many times, you know, and I was so sensitive to her. I don't know, mentioning something that kind of insinuates some experience with some other guy in the past, you know, like it just made me fuming, right? And yeah, I've just stopped a little bit to not completely stall, you know. There's so many things to be talked about, you know. Another thing that I already kind of said indirectly, but anxious people or abandonment wounded people are often quite pushy, you know, because it's like the anxious. The funny thing, I guess we can end it here, or not end, but the abandonment wounded person, they often have too little focus on themselves, you know. They think they need something outside of themselves to feel safe, you know, with another person, often. So often romantically, but also, so you're gonna see that, you know, some people, they can never be by themselves. They just have to be around people, even if they're gonna sit and be on their phone all the time, you know. And it's a spectrum, guys. Nothing is black and white in this world. You should be able to be self-reliant, but you need interdependence with people too. Like, we all depend on each other in the end. No one would make it if it was just them. So because some people, and we can talk about that in future videos, they go too far out on the other side of the spectrum. Funny thing is that there is this mix too. Someone like me has been like anxious and focusing on things outside of and people, girls definitely outside of myself, way too much at times. On the other time, I can also be way too independent. But the what the person with the abandonment wound in the end has realized or has to do is to learn to put themselves first, not abandon themselves. Because it's when you abandon yourself first, that's when you get the experience of abandonment in the outside world. While if you are there for you, even if a person would physically leave, they cannot abandon you, or you cannot have the experience of abandonment if you don't abandon yourself, okay? So, and I'll tell you that, like, I could go on so long, guys. It's going to be a long video. I knew that before. But the panic attacks that I went through, do you know that, because when I just am for having completely shocked, having such an uncomfortable experience, realizing that I'm thinking about ending my life if this is gonna keep going on, you know, because I can't live like this. The thing that made me keep going, it can sound like honorable on one hand, is my parents. I'm like, I cannot do that to my parents. Like, after everything they've been through with my brother and me, you know, I cannot have them like get the news that your 26-year-old son or 25-year-old son took his own life, you know. So I didn't, this incredibly exhausting, most difficult thing I ever went through, I didn't even do it for me to begin with. I needed to have someone else to focus on for that. Like I said, it can sound in part honorable because there are people that are way too selfish and don't take other people into consideration. But one part of it is also kind of pathetic that, okay, so if there was no one else around that had some relationship to me, I would just like end it because I'm not worth fighting for. It's really other people I should fight for, you know. But so I gained that in the process. And I started for my parents' sake and other people in my life, but I continued for my own. But ever since, I've had to find out, you go rounds with yourself with these things, guys. You think you've solved things, you know, but you just peel layers. You just get better. But it's like, so these things that come from childhood are never going to go away completely. It's just you understanding yourself more deeply and like working further on yourself. So immediately after that panic attack experience, it was way more easy to me to not people please and put myself first, say no to things that I know this is not good for me, you know, or yeah. But then I ended up in situations where you're just thrown right back to the start. It feels like, of course, it's not literally like that. In romantic relationships, but also From that's a great thing, guys. I guess I often say let's end on that note and then just keep on going. But it's in the romantic relationship that's like the final boss. Funnily enough, relationships is like in the end one of the toughest things for human beings, but especially family and romantic relationships. But because you get so triggered in the romantic relationships, some things are going to be like more revealed, more clear there. And just when you think, oh, I never had this problem outside of this, it's like, you might not struggle as much in other situations, but something was revealed about you here that if you look closely, you're going to see traces of it in other places in your life. So I can still see that being someone that genuinely wants to help, doing what I do both professionally but in my free time here, Uncommon Sense and the training and coach, everything, right? I've had to notice that, yeah, I feel overly responsible for other people sometimes, that I should take so much time and effort to respond to people that don't put in much time and effort to communicate clearly and respectfully with me and stuff. It's actually been a great experience for me to have the YouTube channel grow more, because you just come to a point where it's like, yeah, I cannot possibly take responsibility for every little asshole that, feels entitled to my time and attention and doesn't interact respectfully or anything. Still happy to provide even free help to those that, can approach me with respect and that. But you see that from some experiences in life, I could see that clearly I still struggle with some of these things. But yeah, that's an intro to these kinds of topics. The abandonment wound. We can talk more about the attachment styles, avoidant and anxious. I know them quite well. I think of them so much. It's so useful, actually. I always try to categorize my clients many times silently for myself. I just bring it up if it's relevant to the person. But learning and understanding these things has helped me so much as a coach, but also as just a human being. Um, yeah, it's a wild ride, this life thing, guys. It is. That's why the work has to be holistic, because how you do something is how you do everything. You are the constant in everything in your life. So if we want to change things in our life, we got to get really deep with these things. And yeah, I guess that's it, guys. So I'm very much looking forward to your comments, and please do holistic bodybuilding coaching. All of this goes into it, guys. Getting jacked and stacked mentally, physically, spiritually, working on ourselves, body, mind, and soul, becoming that person on every level. So it starts within before it starts on the outside. But so if you are interested, you can send me a DM on Instagram or email me. It's in the description below. I'll tell you about my different options. And I can pick up my training book, everything mindset and the philosophy and technique related you need to become a self-reliant, jacked and stacked individual. And please subscribe for more content about fitness, fasting, losing weight, building muscle, self-improvement, stoicism, mental health, philosophy, spirituality, mindset. It is a mindset, guys, but I don't know which one it is this time. Peace.